Hi, welcome to the story of Silver Rain Runningcloud, and I'm Silver Rain. I'm not going to show my face tonight. I'm tired and depressed, as a lot of people are, watching what happened to Donald Trump filter through our society. A lot of people are afraid. A lot of people are afraid to speak out about what they think and what they feel. In fact, ever since January 6th, a lot of people have been afraid to say what they really think and feel about the direction of America and the way the people that have been endowed with power are using that power to change the character of America altogether. You know that saying that if you ignore something horrible happening to somebody else, it's only a matter of time before that horrible thing could happen to you? I'm not exactly sure how the adage goes, but some famous person said something about not ignoring injustice when it's not happening to you, because the people that practice injustice, once they are allowed to get away with it and become empowered, they're not likely to stop and turn into nice guys all of a sudden or anything like that. So I'm here. I got my door open over there with the cover up on it. I don't know if you can see it. You can saw me right there, but you can see my door right here. And what's outside? They started playing loud music after I opened the door. It was so quiet today that I thought maybe I was alone in the hotel, which was kind of good, except that when I did open my door to take out my trash, I saw that people had been trying to break in again and had dug the paper out that I put to block them. They dug it out and dropped it on the ground out there. So that's not so happy. I'm still living in danger. I'm still suffering from bioweapons that are jumping in my face. I'm still suffering with organisms in my teeth that are fighting me for food. I'm still living in a crazy, surreal world that isn't anything at all like what America was supposed to be. Not at all. So I'm here, and I'm seeing one newscaster after another afraid to actually say anything. As usual, they want to show allegiance to the powers that be. They don't want to use logic and rationality and a pure form of justice to really look at what's happened. To really look at what's happened. I mean, I myself am afraid to say those names. I myself am afraid to speak out. Because if they can use their courts the way they use their courts against Donald Trump, after they used election results that we all know were wrong, and after they essentially successfully created a coup to take over the American government and the American treasury money so they could have the war that they want. They can have the fight with Russia and the Ukraine, and they can have the fight where Israel gets what it wants by taking over more Arab land. They have so much control of public media. They have so much control of academia, where the experts come from. They have so much control of the political sphere that they just flex their muscle on us. They just knocked us out. They just let us know, hey, we can take you out anytime we want. Well, you know what happened to me in Arizona with being kidnapped by the Arizona State Police. And what happened to me in Memorial City, Texas, Houston, Texas, by law enforcement here and in Arizona, and just by the courts in Arizona. Well, I saw firsthand what it's like for law enforcement to kidnap you and for a judge not even to listen to you and for them to try to lock you up, just lock you up with no due process, no respect for law and order, just so they can reach their ends of owning power. You hear all that loud music? That's because my door is open, I think. But I'm not really sure why they're playing that loud music. Because it was so quiet here, and we don't usually get music that loud going on, but he's been doing it for a while now. They might want me to close my door so I don't see what's, going on. They never know when I'm going to video them. But I'm here in this Houston hotel after successfully getting away from the criminals in Arizona with the power of the legislation and law enforcement. And I'm here after so many illegal corporate crimes, politicians' crimes. So many crimes have me cornered here. But look what they're doing to Donald Trump. I mean, threatening to put him in jail. And we all know that those charges really are not even respectable. A prostitute? Really? A prostitute? I don't know. Is she a tranny? Is it a tranny hooker? Well, I'm stunned. But I'm even more stunned because nobody's going to take him on. I mean, if they can put Donald Trump through a circus like that, and they can do you, and I've already let you know what they did to me. So we know that we are in a society filled with people that have somehow gotten all the power. Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden, those were crimes. And the agenda that they promised to deliver when they got that bribe money is being delivered. We are getting the war they wanted. We are getting Ukrainians sent into America to occupy ghost towns. We are getting closer and closer and closer to the point of no return. When Donald Trump was elected president in 2020, we all know that he was. We all know that Biden did not really win. But we had a body of news reporters and analysts conspiring together, hand-selected. We had a body of judiciaries willing to work together against moral law, against the law. We have every level of power corrupted. I mean, this really isn't America anymore, is it? If something like this had happened in another country, a country that we have been told is not as well run as our country, then we would have said, oh my God, but it's us now. We're the ones that the entire world is looking at and saying, don't they know? Don't they know what's happening to them? America's supposed to be the land of the brave, the home of the free. But they're all afraid to even speak the truth. They're afraid to say anything because they know that what happened to Silver Rain Runningcloud under the hand of Tina Ainley, beaten by the police, tortured by the police, and then tried to put in jail, and then going through all the other things that I have had to go through, having my credit rating ruined, corruption at the bank where the bank actually cheats, having hackers break into my websites, my computer systems. But this isn't about me. This is about us. This is about America. This is about the fact that we all know that the vote was stolen. We all know it. And the proof is in the blockchain. So we know it can be proved. And we would expect the journalists, the investigative journalists, to actually get in there and publish the proof. But they're not. They're talking about other countries and human rights abuses in other countries. And they're talking about a war and promoting a war. I mean, do you ever think of what would happen if everybody just quit talking about Ukraine? If everybody just quit talking about Russia? If everybody just quit talking about the Europeans that are trying to kill the Arabs and steal the Gaza land? I mean, every day we hear the Europeans promote this and talk about it with a bias and promote it. I mean, why don't we just have a vote and make some decisions and quit talking about it? I don't think that there's really an honest person in America that can say that it was okay for the United Nations, an organization filled with Europeans, biased. I don't think there's anyone in the world that can say that they did not have the right to give away Arab lands. They did not have the ownership of those lands to give those lands away. But they did. They gave those lands away, and now instead of people saying, hey, but wait a minute, the claim to those lands is an illegitimate claim. No, we just say, they have a right. They have a right to exist. They have a right to defend themselves. But do they have a right to expand the territory they've already conquered? Well, sure they do. Because the real right that they were granted, those Europeans, a lot of them from the Ukraine region, those Europeans that were put into the Arab lands as civilian invasion, civilian settlers, they were given a license to murder and rob from the Arab people. Here in America, we had a lot of laws, slave code laws, that made every black person a slave by law and made every black person subjected to these laws, which were designed to cause genocide, terror, leading to no claims on our land. You could just take our land because you killed us. How long are we all going to pretend that we don't see what's really going on here? How long are we going to be so afraid that we dare not confront the enemies of freedom? I would say of God, but God made all of us, you know, but he gave us free will. And what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a lot of people who are as afraid as I am of speaking the truth and trying to actually redirect America onto the right path and stop the European murder and theft of other races and their lands. But I'm seeing people who are as afraid as I am, but they don't find the courage. They don't find the courage. And I'm not talking about little people that can easily be brushed away as I am. I was easily brushed away. I'm talking about some of those elected politicians. I mean, are they all corrupt? Every single one of them? Is there really no way to stop what's going on? Is there really no way to turn America around and really make it the nation that we all want to live up to? They put Donald Trump through so many charges until something stuck. And then they pushed it through until he was convicted. A convicted felon is what they're calling him. And that sticks, you know. But what about Biden? What about Hunter Biden taking those bribes to support the war between Russia and Ukraine? What about all the money that the Biden team has sent to Europe that goes into the United States of America Corporation defense industry? You know they're going to use that money to tighten the screws on us. They'll reinvest it in more oppressive systems like Starlink and the other Elon Musk, Werner von Braun Nazi industries. All that money is going to come back around to hurt us. And we're just sitting watching as if we're drugged or too stupid. Now there's a price for cowardice. Why do we forget that they are just people too? They're not supernatural magicians. They're not gods. And we're just going to let them smack us around, steal our votes, install a warmonger as a dictator, use our assets for whatever they want to. And we're just gonna watch because we're too scared. And now, I mean, after they unfairly prosecuted the January 6th people for being real Americans, I mean, the reason why the Europeans were able to make America in the first place was because of the Revolutionary War. There were British loyalists everywhere. But there were enough people here, a critical mass of Europeans in America who really wanted things better. And enough of them had integrated with us Americans to have learned a new mindset, a new view, a new way of looking at life and family and land and water, a new way of looking at earth and society. And those Europeans, those Revolutionary War Europeans, they wanted what America had to offer. They wanted what we had. They wanted the freedom to dance on the land. They wanted the abundance of wildlife. They wanted the arable lands. Oh, sure, it's nice enough to have your flat in Europe, but the sun doesn't even shine very much in London. And it is just an island, isn't it? And I've seen just the prettiest little pictures of a village in Switzerland. And I wondered, how would they feel if I said, oh, this is mine now, and started mining those mountains and digging up their beautiful mountains and taking what I want from it, like they do to my people in Arizona and Utah and Colorado and New Mexico. Yeah, we're all under attack from the Europeans. We're all bending down our knees and bowing our heads to them as the owners of us and our lands. Makes me want to cry, except I'm so far beyond tears. I'm sort of in the disgust territory, if you want to know the truth, and feeling that it's only hopeless as long as America is filled with cowards that refuse to actually say what they think and see. Because I can't be the smartest person in the world. I can't be the only person that can see a systematic attack on us that has been so successful that we don't have one single established leader or group of leaders that can stand up for us. It's a very sad day in America, a very sad, sad time. Joe Biden accepted bribe money. The newspapers reported it, but then they stopped reporting it, preferring to make a sensation out of prosecuting and persecuting Donald John Trump. Donald John Trump won that election. We all know he won that election. Even if you just looked at the number of people that came out to his campaign, you could see that the popular vote supported Donald Trump. We wanted the America that he was showing us. We wanted the borders to be closed. We didn't know that they were transporting slaves from that southern border. We didn't know that they were stealing crops and sending them across the Great Lakes from the northern border. We didn't know that the ports had been privatized and owned by individual European corporations. We didn't know, we didn't know how many borders that should be protecting our commerce have been left open. We just didn't know. Because we thought we lived in America. And we thought that actually meant something. We didn't think that we were living under savage warlords that were actually going to force us to accept their views of life. And now, I was looking at a report from Future Forecasters today, where a group of remote viewers seem to be reporting mushroom clouds are headed our way. Now, we all know what that means. That means that there is the possibility that we're all going to be dragged into a nuclear war. Monkeyworks, that's WERKS, is already saying we can expect a draft to be started here, that we can expect the warlords to force our children to go die. And we're supposed to pretend that it's for liberty and justice for all. But it isn't. It's for money for the Europeans. That's what all this is for. Now, some people say that it's the reptilians, it's the bad ETs that have taken over, and that a lot of human beings end up working for the bad ETs because they don't know what else to do or something. I don't know. But I do know this. If we refuse to participate, it puts an end to it. I mean, I don't think we're going to see a lot of reptilians coming up with guns and shooting us, do you? I mean, so far, they have relied on other people, human people, to do their bidding, haven't they? And that's what I've heard. But I've heard and seen a lot of things, in the alternative European news. I've heard them say and talk about a lot of things about who's behind all of this oppression. And I've heard people say that the good ETs are here and very active. And I've heard people say that the white hats have made a huge difference. But we all know that the white hats only work for the Europeans. The white hats do not acknowledge racism. They just want to be the new owners, the new rulers, the new investors. But they don't want to see the real American dream, the real American vision. The strategies they're used to railroad Donald Trump were perfected in their oppression of the real American people. When everybody stood by and let American jurisprudence unfairly prosecute one famous Black American after another, they really set the precedence in your mind. They set the tone. They let you know that, hey, we can do whatever we like, and what we like to do is take away the land from the Americans. We want to get rich. We want to have boats. We want to own the waters. We don't even want to see them because they might make us feel guilty if we had a conscience. So when you're a real American, your fight is even more complicated than the fight that the Europeans have on their hands. Because we're all Donald Trump when you're Black in this land, when you're a Black or an Indian, a real landowner, then you are a Donald Trump. They can pull you in. And all the symbolism of that trial, that a prostitute, isn't that like the Jezebel spirit being promoted there? And Samson and Delilah and Eve, Lamalenche. I mean, isn't it the story of Eve dragging Adam down? And we all know, I mean, I learned it from Jana Brazil when she was studying Greek literature instead of my literature. Before she went to Haiti for the disruptions that went there, Jana Brazil taught me that Christianity was a reaction to the woman-led cults that centered around women because women had reproductive powers. But if you didn't notice anything, you would have noticed that one of the first things the blood libelists did was drag down American womanhood. And we have proof of that by how many men said, I would rather marry a woman from another country than marry an American woman. Because American women want to compete with men to be men. They don't want to be women. And we want women. So we're going to marry women from other lands. There was a whole movement around that, around American men rejecting American women. And don't think that American women got there by themselves. I mean, first we had Gloria Steinem and feminism. But even if you rejected feminism, they used the economic system to force you to go to work so that everybody would be an employee. Everybody would think of themselves as an employee. And as an employee, well, you always have something to lose if you don't please your employer. So there have been so many microaggressions against the real American dream, the true idea of freedom. There have been so many microaggressions against our ability to think clearly and reason. There have been so many microaggressions against our ability to own ourselves and claim our destinies. We've all been consigned to fate, and our fate is to be slaves, to watch our greatest men beaten with chains and thrown into prisons, to watch our enemies slowly kill us. It's such a sad, sad day. The day that they broke Donald Trump down. Now, for me, it's a triumph for blood libel. Blood libel was created in the 1100s. Back then, there was a group of people like the Jeffrey Epstein crowd. And a lot of the people in that region, before public transportation and stuff like that, their children were being slaughtered. Their children were disappearing. Their children were being kidnapped. And in time, the investigators found the abattoir where all the children bodies, pretty much like what they found at the Jeffrey Epstein compound. They found a scene like that. And they got their pitchforks and their brooms and all the things like that. And they conducted something called a pogrom. And a pogrom was a murderous riot by the Europeans, where they would find the people that had been killing their children, kidnapping and murdering their children, and they brought them to justice. Well, some people think that those Europeans were working for the reptilians and that they were actually, producing food for the reptilians. Much the way that you might steal a flock of sheep or lambs from a shepherd. They sort of saw it like that. So they had power beyond the countrymen that created the pogrom. So they were not only able to survive the pogrom, it did not create a genocide, but they were able to learn from it and develop strategies so that would not be a next time. There would never be a next time. And some people think that the reptilians were part of the ability of these European peasants to create a sophisticated defense. And even then they named it, because they knew it was going to be an important political system. Even then they named it and they called it. So we got the name pogrom from that area, from that time, as a pogrom as a result of murdering children, kidnapping and murdering, child trafficking. And this is back in 1100 in Eastern Europe. And we also got the word blood libel from that time, because that's when they started the defense. How will we prevent this from happening again? Because they weren't going to give up the human meat business. They weren't going to stop producing babies for the aliens to eat, for the reptilians to eat. It's a delicacy probably, but it's a supply chain. A supply chain that made it into the intergalactic realm via the Nazis. It's also unbelievable until you know it's true, isn't it? And once you know it's true, it's almost weird how well it comes together. I mean, like scary weird. Because all the puzzle pieces seem to fit together. So blood libel came out of the 1100s as the strategy for protecting the human baby meat market. And blood libel consisted of the knowledge that if you can control public opinion, you can control the public. And if you can control the public, you can control each individual. And look how well they've done. Haven't they done well? I mean, let's give them a hand. Let's give them a hand, because blood libel from the 1100s has been a huge success. Let's look at it a little closer. If the judge had said, "I'm sorry, but my court is too dignified to take a case from a prostitute that is doing sexual blackmail, because the prostitute does not have the moral standing to be trusted as a reliable witness, not to mention bringing the case to my court, prosecuted, right? She's on the side of the prosecution. We're not going to prosecute a case, a hearsay case from a prostitute, right? Now, the actual charges of paying hush money is like prosecuting a person who was blackmailed and paid the money. If you're blackmailed and you pay the money, are you the criminal or are you the victim? How did they flip that around, I wonder? Because it seems to me that I know a lot of men that have been to strip clubs. And I know men that like sexy, loose women. So I suppose I know a lot of men that could have been blackmailed during a seduction. So the idea of a politician paying a blackmailer a small sum so that he can get on with things in in the hierarchy of crimes, I don't find that to be a particularly impressive one. I can understand it, is what I'm saying. And one of the things that you strive for in a court is reason. Would a reasonable person understand this? Would a reasonable person make sense of this? And I think that any reasonable person can understand why a presidential candidate might arrange to pay a prostitute to not make a scandal about an indiscretion. But to tell you the God honest truth, I don't even really think that this is something that I needed to know. I really don't. Especially when I consider what Joe Biden did. And especially when I consider that the only reason that they were able to use the courts to control Donald Trump is because it's filled with blood libelists. Blood libel is the name that covers the entire process. And the process consists of controlling public opinion. If the media had said, we have the evidence that the German-made vote counting software manipulated the vote because the Nazis have a lot to gain from getting defense dollars from Americans. And they have a lot to gain from war. They like war. It's their thing. See, if the media had said that and provided us with the proof and done the investigative work, then we all would have said, hey, let's fix this. Let's turn this vote around. Let's get the man in that we wanted, right? But that man was going to make sure that black colleges were funded. That man was going to make sure that the Indians on the reservations got their money. That man was going to close the borders, control the corporate theft, and really make America worth living in. I mean, he may have been willing to continue European nationalist supremacy. And that might have been a persisting problem. But we would have come so much farther in terms of human rights and justice and the pursuit of happiness. But look what we have now. Look what the Joe Biden people have brought to us. They stole the vote just like they were paid to do. They supported the war just like they were paid to do. And they defeated the American people with increasing homelessness, toxins in the food supply chains, enabling Europeans to build aqueducts so they can plan a future where you have to buy water just like you buy gasoline. They've come a very long way from stealing the vote. And it's almost as if we don't even remember all that Hunter Biden stuff, isn't it? I mean, it's like we don't even remember the big guy getting paid for delivering America. And when I think about our children having this as their history, where they have to know that our president was prosecuted by a prostitute, I mean, don't you find that kind of disgusting? Like you're living in Sodom and Gomorrah? You know? I mean, it really makes you want the fall of Babylon, because Babylon privileges a whore over a hero. It's absolutely unbelievable. It really, really is. And because something so outrageous and terrifying has been allowed to happen, we're all afraid to say anything about it. We're all so afraid to say a single word, because we all know. I mean, if you didn't know before and you didn't care about me and my story, you're going to care about what happened to Donald Trump and the way they let a prostitute bring him to jail. They could put Donald Trump in jail, you know. They have established themselves with a legal right. And sadly enough, we don't question the legitimacy of our legal representation anymore. We don't care that they all work for Britain and Britain wants American stuff. Because we've gotten so used to it, haven't we? Well, I don't want to sound depressing, okay? Because I honestly believe that we make it out of this great. You know, one of the things that I heard being said on Farsight Institute, Conversations with Harvey, one of the things I remember being said is that the goody teas have a strategy to let things get as bad as they get, so that people will actually see for themselves the need for transformation. And you can only know there's a need for transformation if you're honest about the condition you're in. Well, I think we all know that we're afraid to speak out because we don't want to go to jail like Donald is. We don't want to go to jail. We don't want to go to jail. We don't want to go to prison. And you just have to listen to my story to know that they will send you to jail if they can get you. It's something that can really happen. They can rob your inheritance. They can put you in jail. They can beat you up and attack you. They can gang stalk you. And that's even if you're the president. All they have to do is gang up on you with their blood libel team and say, oh, no, you're not. You're not the president because we won't let you. Now, you people tell me, what's the difference between that and any other military coup? What's the difference between what has happened in America and any other coup? A coup is when a small group of people deny power to the elected representative and they replace that representative with themselves. That's exactly what happened when George Bush won, but that was swept under the rug. And because we swept that under the rug, the whole hanging Chad, my brother's got a hanging Chad, so I'm going to be the president. Once they got over that and nobody peeped a word, well, nobody with a voice that made a difference, then they knew they could get away with this. They knew that they could just bitch smack all of us, tell us to shut the fuck up, and then say, we're going to take your money, we're going to spend it to kill people, because we want Arabia, and we want Russia, and we're going to get it, and you can either get out of our way or we will squash you. And we're all cowering in fear. I'm looking at you all, people. I'm looking at you cowering in fear. I'm looking at you on your knees, sweating and crying and covering your faces and moaning and praying. But I don't see anybody standing up and fighting. And I don't mean, war. I just mean that there are people out there with free will that are actually making these things happen. I mean, every time there's a news report where they're promoting hating another nation, or they're telling you a story that's filled with bias about war, every time they do that, they're participating in blood libel. They're participating in creating a public opinion. Now, once you have the public opinion under control, where you're the only voices of authority, you're the only voices that can be heard, and what you say is predictive programming, can actually become the truth. Once you have that, getting your courts in is nothing. Getting a corrupt court established is nothing. You simply fail to report the incidences of corruption and report the corruption itself as successes and victories. And that's what they did, isn't it? Now we hear that there's something called the Illuminati. And we hear that the Illuminati always has to tell the people what they've done or what they're going to do or what they're up to. And they told us what Joe Biden was going to do. They told us that the German counting machines were changing ballots. They told us that they found boxes of ballots that voter oversight volunteers had removed. They told us Donald Trump won. They told us that. And then they just denied it was true and just acted as if Biden was the president. They simply acted as if Biden was the president. And we all accepted it at that. We said, oh, well, the news said that Biden said this, so this is what's going to happen. And not a single one of us went and said, you want to know what? All these agencies are private agencies. The Department of Defense is a privately owned European agency. Nobody brought them to court on behalf of the American people. You know why? The courts belong to England. We don't have standing in our own courts. We don't have an avenue to justice. We don't have a method for recompense. I hope what I'm saying to you is getting through to you. I mean, I'm flying by the seat of my pants here, but it seems to me that we are as oppressed and defeated and conquered as any people have ever been in any land in the history of humanity. I mean, I don't see American freedom here. I just don't see it. I see a lot of victims that have been beaten. I see a lot of losers that have been defeated. I see a lot of people whose mouths have been forced open and they've been forced to eat the offal of the deceivers. What do you see when you look at us? What do you see? I really want to know.